Before we get started, I want to thank you all for waiting so long. For a while, I've only had 1,000 words plus, and I usually like to do 3,000 words. So, oh my gosh, we're back. Chapter 16. I have to give a warning. This does have mention of murder, so please be careful if you are sensitive to that. But anyways, let's get it going. Kai couldn't stop prancing around his newborn son. Even in the office, he wouldn't let anyone take him. Well, where were you? Well, asleep. Giving birth was not easy. Yes, it did really hurt. And long. So lying down was the only way that really made you feel better. Though you did really want to see Ryu, but you weren't going to let your peace be interrupted. You were in pure quiet. And that was what you wanted. So, you'll stay in bed and enjoy the fluffiness. That was when the door was opened ever so slightly. "Are you awake?" asked a hushed Yona. "No." You spoke, looking at her. This is really bad timing, but Her Majesty wishes to see you. In person," she whispered, yelled, making you jolt up and walking over to her, your hands on her shoulders. Does she say why?" You spoke. She only shook her head and then looked to the ground. "Kai knows about this, but doesn't like the idea of you going." She looked back up at you. "I don't think I would feel safe there." You walked past her. You paused for a moment. She followed you, wondering what on earth you were planning. "My lady, you better not do what you're thinking," she spat. "No, you don't know what I'm going to do." You walked all the way to Kai's office, seeing Kai playing with Rui. "Kai, I'm going to the capital, and I need Rui." Your voice was stern. "Why? I forbid you from going." "I can't let no one have you." He got up with Rui in his arms. "And I'll be taking him as well." The two of you were staring at each other. "I'm nervous," Haru spoke as she held a tray of food and looked at the three of you. "Kai, just please. If I go, then I can stop the Emperor from making me, I don't know, one of his consorts." You spat. Ryu starting to stir from the loudness. "No, that whole place is a trap. Every person is probably out to get you. He may have a page for you. God, why can't you just hear me out?" You turned, grabbing a new brush, then going to his ink, taking it and grabbing his paper. They watched as you drew something and showed them. The birds flying to who knows where, the water rushing off the waterfall into the river, the wind making the leaves sway back and forth. "See?" You then reached your hand into the painting, where a flower was perfectly placed so you could grab it, taking the poppy out and showing as the black ink turned into reds, yellows, and greens of the poppy. "See?" you asked, your voice changing. Their gazes changing. Yona is one of shock. Haru is turned worried. But Kai's eyes, narrow. "How long have you known this?" he asked. You looked down. "What were you going to do? Lie?" "I found out before you got here." You looked back up at him. "I had been painting and..." You held the paper close to your chest. "I wanted to surprise you for your birthday." His gaze lowered. He walked over with Ryu in his arms, holding you close to with his free hand. You held onto him, tears falling from your eyes. You didn't see Yona or Haru in the room. "Tell me, are you scared of going there? Tell me everything on your mind." It was stern, but yet a comforting voice. You held him closer as he played with your hair. "I'm worried. I'm worried for Lishu. I'm worried for Rui. I'm worried for both of us. I don't want him to kill you, just to get to me." You felt like you were going to fall to your knees, and Kai knew this. He slowly moved down with you in his arms, giving you Rui. "I can't deny you going. It truly is up to you. if you wish to go. But I don't want to see you hurt nor away from my hold. He wrapped his arms around me, holding me close to his body. I'll let you go, but only if you promise me not to stay for too long there. All right? He asked, pulling me away. And you make sure not to let anyone touch you or harm Rui in a harmful way, he whispered as he wiped my tears off my cheeks. I nodded. He helped me up. I didn't even notice that the two had left the room. I looked down at Rui. He looked to me and almost started to cry. He had his fists balled up and his legs were close to his body. Shh, baby, it's okay. I rocked him back and forth, feeling him calm down. I feel sorry for the poor guy after hearing us argue. I smiled once his teary eyes had dried. Kai waved his finger in front of his stomach and played with him. Ian, he spoke as I looked up at him. Please forgive me for anything I have done to make you upset. I just wish we didn't have two different ways of life, our worlds. He placed his hand on my cheek. Bam! And, well, Rui started to cry once the door was slammed open. It was Suzumi, huffing and puffing, her head down and her hands holding onto the doorframe. Suzumi! Yona gasped as she looked like she tried to stop her. No, I'm sorry, but I can't just sit and watch as my lady is killed in front of my eyes, and then anyone who worked for her. Suzumi looked up at me, her eyes having tears falling onto the floor. Please, Kai, I beg you. Kai put up his hand to stop her. I'm already letting her go. The three girls' eyes widened. I'm only doing this because I trust her with her own life and Ryu's. He blocked the two of us. I was trying to calm down Ryu once again. She is to go and come back as soon as possible. Got that? Kai asked sternly to Suzumi. I looked at her to see her nodding. I will make sure with my life that she lives to go without a scrape on her or Rui's body. Her hand was to her chest. Her gaze was focused only on Kai. And Kai nodded, her eyes lighting up. Whoa. She took my hand. Come on, we need to hurry. She spoke. Yona. She turned to the girl. Please. She looked to the girl more closely. I was so confused. No, I'm not risking the death of Yin, she spat. What are you talking about? Haru asked. She has the ability to teleport things here and from, but only small objects. Kai spoke, both his hands in his sleeves. How do you think I get items so quickly to her? She asked Haru. Then come on. Suzumi pulled me along. If you won't teleport us, then I will. She moved me and Ryu closer to her. Baby, she yelled. I heard the desperate in her voice. I heard the two yelp as the spider, known as, I guess, baby now, I don't know, quickly ran over to her, its web quickly going around us. What are you doing? Kai spoke. I'll explain later. The spider kept going faster and faster until its webs came over to my eyes and I saw nothing. And then the palace. I blinked. Rui opening his eyes, cueing at everything. God, you are energy. My lady, I heard Suzumi as it sounded like she ran over to Lishu. I made sure Rui was all right, which he was, just confused as to where he was. The different smell and noises perhaps was making him wonder, moving my hands around and head. Hello, Yin. I looked up to see Lishu. She looked like she hadn't slept in years. Her hair looked more unkempt. It's been some time. How are you? Her voice seemed different. I quickly got up. Yes, it has. I'm sorry to hear about your children. I looked down. Please, don't worry. I have a favor to ask you. I looked confused. May I hold for you? She asked. Yes. I nodded as I moved to give her Rui over. Hello there, little one. She smiled and moved her finger above him. He cooed and giggled as he tried to take a hold of her finger. My, your son is quite cute. Where does he get it from? You? She giggled as she went to sit down. That's when I realized that there was a table ready and painting tools. I see that you've seen the painting items. I know this is selfish of me, but may I use your powers? She looked at me, all the other ladies looking away. Lishu, I understand. I paused as I looked down. I have used people to get things done. She looked shocked. Well, in this world and history, you have to learn to use what you are given to rise. She giggled a bit. I'm glad you learned that faster than some. She looked back down. Wait, how do you know about my power? I asked. She only giggled. Once again, I have ways. She winked. I nodded and moved ever so closer to the painting items. Sitting down, I think I have an idea as to what she wants from me. I painted the details of Rui, but making sure the baby looks like Lishu. She continued to take care of the baby, the boy that I grew to love. You know, Yin, I remember holding my children like this. She spoke. I heard her sigh. You know, people think that I killed my own child. She paused, and I looked at her. Someone within this castle is their killer, and I wish to find them as soon as possible. Her eyes narrowed down. And when I do, I won't hesitate to rip them limb from limb until their ash is nothing. She then smiled. Don't you think? She tilted her head as she looked at me. Should I trust you with my son now? She giggled. Don't worry. I love kids and would never hurt them. Isn't that right, little Rui? She tickled his stomach. I continued to paint until the painting was done. I'm finished, Lishu. She looked up and walked over. My, you are such a great painter. She looked over at the painting. I used to suck at it. I giggled. Practice makes perfect. I turned back to the painting and reached my hands in, taking out the sleeping baby. Here you go, Lishu. Suzumi was next to her, with Rui in her arms. Lishu took the baby and held them close. I sat there, watching as she just smiled slightly, crying as she held close to him. Yin, once again, I owe you so much, she cried. My lady! Many of the ladies spoke as she fell to the floor, holding him close to her chest. Lishu, I want nothing from you, except I want to live where our children can grow, where I don't have to worry about anything but my son. She looked at me and nodded. I will make sure that you don't have to worry about anything, nor will Kai. She smiled. Suzumi gave me back Rui. My lady. Another girl opened the door. Quick, he's coming. She nodded and stood quickly, going over to her bed. I looked to Suzumi. Sorry, we've done some planning. She ushered me somewhere else. Before leaving, I caught Lishu waving as she sat on the bed. We made it to a different room. It looked to be made for a meeting. Suzumi then bent down. I thought we left him back at home. I spoke as I saw the little spider come into view. He can do things to himself, too. She looked to the spider. Let's take Lady Yin home. She smiled. And before His Majesty gets into this room, doing the same thing as before, I blinked, and I was back in my room, Rui in my arms. Wait, it's nighttime? I looked outside. Well, your painting was the trick. She crossed her arms. She went over to grab a broom, sweeping away. Yin? Suzumi spoke after some time. Rui had gotten hungry, so he was quiet. I'm sorry. I hummed at her. She stopped and brought the broom close to her chest. I know you haven't known Ray for as long as I have. I'm sorry for telling her about your powers. She looked at me, her eyes teary. I've known her since she's gotten here. We wanted the same. She smiled. I couldn't see her die before me. I didn't realize, but I had begun to tear up. Because she trusted so many people, In the first place, it caused her body to be damaged after giving birth to her son. She paused, huffing, trying to make sure her tears didn't affect her. Suzumi, you don't have to continue. I see how much it hurts you. Hearing Rui make some noises. Oh no, we're getting too loud. I got up and walked over to her. No, I don't know why, but she wants you to know this. She opened the door to the garden and swept out the dust that had been on the ground. She likes you a lot, you know. She looked at me. That's when it hit. Wait, did you say gotten here? Is she? I trailed off, making sure that no one heard us. Yes, Rei Lishu is human, and so were both the prince and princess. My eyes widened. You, the king, and I are the only ones that know this. Is she still? She nodded. But how? I have no clue. I looked down at Ryu, aware as he stared at me. And I see why. You're nice. Everyone around you seems to like you. Except when you bring up the human part. She giggled. Oh, shut up. I laughed. Hey, sorry for just... She looked down. Throwing that on you. It must have been... I shook my head. I think I've done that to you, so I've just paid my debt for listening. Oh, Lord, she laughed. Now, go spend time with Kai. He's in his office. I'll take care of Rui. I nodded, knowing how she probably knows where he is. Thanks. I smiled and left the room, walking to where I wanted, until I made it to his office. I knocked on the door. Go away. I'm busy. I heard him groan. I opened it and about ready to call him. What did I say? He was caught off guard when he saw me. He quickly got up and walked over, his arms wrapping around me. I was so worried. He held me tight. I hugged him back. Kai, I love you. I spoke as I placed my head near his chest. I'm never letting you out of my sight. I felt my feet slowly lift off the ground. Kai, what are you doing? He walked out of the office and to the bathrooms. It felt weird as he washed and cleaned my hair, scrubbing my scalp. God, that feels good. I spoke as I leaned into his touch. What did they make you do? He spoke after some of a nice silence. I froze. What is he going to say when I tell him about that there's another Rui? I made a copy of Rui. Not identical, but they do look related. He sighed. I felt his head lower down onto my neck. What am I going to do with you? I heard him chuckle. Hey, at least we won't have to worry about the Emperor. I sighed. Good, because if he took you, I would have killed him. I felt his hold tighten. So? You're not going anywhere. I felt kisses on my shoulder. Kai, I don't plan on doing it so. He continued to lay kisses on me for a while. Also, I have a gift for you. I hummed. I have gotten a crib for Rui. It should be set up soon. He then paused. Where's Rui? He asked, darkening his voice. He's here, with Suzumi. I turned to him, smiling. She better not take him next to who knows for how long. He then placed a kiss on my nose. He held me close again for some time, hearing his breathing making me feel sleepy. Yin, I heard him. Yeah? I lightly spoke. Never mind. Just rest. He combed through my hair, my eyes shut as I stayed in his hold. Kai stayed with you in his arms for some time before he got up, dried the both of you, and wrapped a yukata around you and him. He walked back to the bedroom, seeing Yona in the room, holding Ryu. She was humming to him. Oh, she quickly stood with him in her arms. I heard Suzumi was watching him. He laid you down on the bed and tucked you in. I took over. She looked down. He was crying, and no matter what the two other did, he kept on crying, so I took over. And why was he crying in the first place? He wanted Yin. But I didn't want to disturb you two. Kai then noticed that he was wrapped in your clothing. I'll go put him down. She walked over to the crib and laid him down, bowing, then leaving the room. Kai looked at his son as he slept, a small smile creeping to his lips. Walking over and taking a hold of Rui, he walked back to the bed and sat down beside you. He looked to you, then back to Rui. You do look like your mother, you know that? He moved his thumb back and forth on his forehead. I hope you're as cunning as she is, sweet as her, and feisty. He placed a kiss onto his head. He then stood up and laid Rui back down, coming back to lay with you. The sun shined as you woke up, trying to block out the sunlight with the blanket. Yan! I heard the voice of Yona. What? I groaned. There's some news. She spoke, knowingly. I groaned once more and sat up, looking towards her. Yes, I noticed that both Kai and Ryu were gone. The Empress conveniently had a baby boy. She gave a knowing smirk yet again. Yeah, I giggled, shaking my head. I was worried. Her voice was changed ever so quickly. I looked to her. Me and Haru were worried sick. I know you were with Suzumi, but don't tell her I told you, but she was worried too, even with you being there. I nodded. Yona, just make sure you don't too confused when they see each other, okay? I giggled. She smiled, giggling as well. Anyways, are you hungry? She asked, and I nodded. I stood up as we both left the room. Yona, why don't you eat with me? I asked when we got there. Sorry, but I've already ate. She smiled. I looked down. Then, tea? I asked. She sighed, shaking her head. Fine, only because of you. She sat down next to me, and I poured her some tea. So, how was it? Being there, I mean. She wondered, leaning a bit forward. Quick. It felt sudden, and like I wasn't supposed to be there. I smiled. Yan, can I ask you a question? She paused, and I nodded. How is she? The Empress, I mean. She looked sick. Eye bags under her eyes, pale, and I think she was shaking a bit. She looked speechless. When you write her, can you tell her, hope you get better, from me? I nodded. Oh, wait. Where is everyone? She giggled. Gushing over Ryu. I laughed slightly. God. I shook my head. Let's just enjoy this morning. She took a sip of her tea, enjoying the sounds of birds chirping and the wind blowing against the trees. Once again, I want to thank everyone so much for waiting like 3 months for this story. I'm so sorry. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you all so much. Bye. Mwah.